I never thought the wall would stoop this low, sending fake cops to drag me out of my own home. But here's the part they didn't know. I'm the guy who trained the real SWAT team, and what happened next will blow your mind. So stick around till the end and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because this story could save your life one day. And it started like any other ordinary Tuesday morning, with me sipping coffee on my porch, admiring the freshly cut lawn, the sound of sprinklers in the distance, the faint laughter of kids riding their bikes to school. But beneath that suburban calm, there was tension brewing, because the WA had already sent me 3 warnings about my mailbox, claiming the paint was chipped in, disrupting community standards, which was ridiculous because every other house had the same wear and tear, yet mine became the target. And maybe it was because I didn't show up to their little monthly meetings, or maybe because the WA president, Mr. Lyle, a slick-haired wannabe dictator with a clipboard permanently glued to his hand, didn't like the fact that I ignored him. But whatever the reason, I crumpled up those letters, tossed them in the shredder, and thought nothing of it, until I noticed the surveillance. First a car with tinted windows parked down the street for hours, then drones hovering too close to my roof, and then neighbors whispering as if they knew something I didn't. And when the knock came at my door, it wasn't polite, it was authoritative, 3 sharp bangs like thunder. And when I opened it, 4 men in tactical gear stood there, badges flashing on chains, hands on their belts, faces hard as stone, and they announced in booming voices that I was under arrest for violations of WA code and refusal to comply with lawful directives, which isn't even a crime, but they said it like it was. And most people would have panicked, but not me, because I noticed right away the flaws in their act, the way one of them stood with his feet too close together, the nervous twitch in another's fingers resting on the trigger of a pistol that was way too shiny to have ever been in the field, and the radio on their vests wasn't even powered on. I knew instantly these weren't real officers, they were imposters hired by the WA to intimidate me, maybe even drag me away to make an example. But what they didn't know was that before I moved to this neighborhood, I wasn't just some homeowner mowing the lawn. I was the lead tactical instructor for the state SWAT program, the guy who trained real operators to handle hostage rescues, armed standoffs, high-risk warrants, the one they called the professor. And if you've ever wondered whether all that training kicks in when you're facing a threat at your own front door, the answer is yes, instantly, because when one of them lunged forward with plastic cuffs in his hand, I sidestepped, twisted his wrist until the cuffs clattered to the ground, shoved his shoulder into the doorframe, spun him into his partner, and in 2 seconds flat I had 2 fakes tangled in a heap, while the other 2 fumbled with their weapons like kids playing airsoft, and I disarmed the first with a wrist strike, sent his pistol skidding across the floor, then glared at the last one who froze in place, muttering into a dead radio, and I told him, "Tell your boss the professor says hi," before booting him out and locking the door, heart racing, adrenaline flooding me, but also grinning because the WA had just escalated into my world, the world of tactics and counters, and they had no idea how outmatched they were. And I knew this was just round 1, because fakes don't act alone, they have backing. And sure enough, within hours I found an envelope shoved under my door that said, "Comply or face removal," and neighbors kept staring, pointing, whispering, and I realized Mr. Lyle had turned the whole block into his personal surveillance network. But instead of fear, I felt excitement, because this wasn't about a mailbox anymore, this was about control, and they picked the wrong guy to try and control. So I set up defenses, motion sensors across my yard, hidden cameras in the hedges, reinforced locks, and then I dialed a number I hadn't touched in years, straight to Captain Rodriguez, commander of the state SWAT team, my former student, the man I once pulled out of a live fire exercise when he froze, the man who owed me his life and his career. And when he answered, I just said, "Cap, it's the professor. The HOA's gone rogue." And after a beat of silence he laughed and said, "Send me the address." And I knew the cavalry was coming. But while I prepped, the imposters came back, this time with more vehicles, black SUVs filling the street, a dozen men pouring out with riot shields and battering rams like they were about to breach my house, neighbors peeking through curtains, phones filming, and just as they lined up to charge, 2 black vans screeched in from both ends of the block, doors flying open, real SWAT operators in full gear storming out in perfect formation, rifles leveled, commands sharp, and within seconds the imposters dropped their shields, panicked, some running, others tackled, their cheap badges clattering to the pavement, and Captain Rodriguez marched up to me, shook his head, and said, "Only you, Professor, could turn an HOA dispute into a tactical op." And I laughed, told him my mailbox was still scratched, but then things got darker, because when they hauled in Mr. Lyle, screaming about bylaws and authority, they found files, evidence the HOA had been running an extortion racket, faking fines, hiring imposters, funneling money offshore, and my little mailbox fight had just exposed a criminal enterprise. But it didn't end there, because while the neighborhood cheered, thinking the nightmare was over, I noticed one detail everyone missed. The imposters' weapons weren't airsoft, they were real, loaded, but modified, untraceable, and that meant someone bigger was backing this. And sure enough, a week later, another knock came, this time softer, a courier dropping a package with no return address, inside a burner phone that rang the moment I touched it, and a voice said, "You don't know who you're messing with, Professor." The war was just the beginning, and the line went dead, and I realized the war one thought I'd ended had only just begun. But that, my friends, is a story for another day. So hit that subscribe button, because the next chapter makes this look like child's play.